What's up, YouTube? Welcome back to my channel, Haterade Cowboy Cinema. In today's video, I wanted to discuss some of the details and the hardware that I'm using for my Plex media server. Now, for those of you that don't know what a Plex server is, I've discussed this in some of my training videos, but Plex is basically like your own Netflix that you store your files, your Blu-ray discs, your DVDs, your music. You rip them to a digital format and then you store them on a computer, whether it's a laptop or a desktop or a NAS, and you have your own server that you can stream locally throughout your house as well as remotely. So it's a great tool, great software, and I'm going to go into the specs that I'm using for my personal Plex media server. All right, so I have my tablet here just so that I don't forget the specs that I have. I may forget them while I'm talking, so I put them on my iPad. But the operating system that I'm using a Windows computer, and I just put Windows 11 on it, literally just installed it yesterday. But before that, I was using Windows 10. So you can use Windows, you can use a Mac, or you can use Linux. You can even use a Raspberry Pi. There's many options for you to use. For my motherboard, I'm using a Gigabyte Z390UD. My processor is an i7-9700K, 3.6 gigahertz, and I have 16 gigabytes of RAM, and my GPU is an NVIDIA GeForce GTX 660. So if you look at the Plex requirements, or the minimum requirements to run a Plex server, it's not very much. It's not very demanding at all. You can get away with a very basic computer with low minimum requirements, and you can still have a pleasurable Plex experience. Now, obviously, if you go with the minimum requirements, you'll be able to use your Plex server, and more than likely, I would assume that if it's just you using your server, you're not going to be dishing out any content remotely, and you're not going to be transcoding any of your media. Maybe your media files aren't, one-to-one. Maybe they're compressed. You should be good. But if you're looking to have people remote connect to your server and watch media, if you're planning on doing transcoding on your media, or if you've got multiple devices throughout the house that you're going to be using, you probably want to go with something a little bit more beefier, a little bit more beefier machine to maximize your experience. So I'm using my GPU with hardware acceleration, and I'm going to show you on the computer what that is, how you can enable it. You do have to have a Plex Pass to use this feature, but I want to show you what you can do if you do have a Plex Pass and you do have a GPU, so that you can offload some of that workload on your processor. And I'm going to do a comparison. I'm going to see how many streams I can get just using my processor before it gets to 100% load, and then I'm going to do the same test with my GPU, my NVIDIA card, and see how many streams that I can get with that. Now, most consumer GPUs, they don't come unlocked. They have a limit on how many transcodes you can do at one time. I don't know why they do that. That's just how it is. They do have GPUs that you can buy that have basically an unlimited amount of streams that you can do, or transcoding, but those cards are like $400 to $500. So I don't have the money for that. I do plan on getting one eventually, hopefully, but for now, I found a way to unlock the card that I do have. There was a guy on YouTube that went through a tutorial, and I tried it and it worked. So I did it once a while back. I'm going to do it again today, and I'm going to show you the results. But the first thing that I would do is I would check your computer to see if you can upgrade it. Because many times you can upgrade the memory, you can upgrade your hard drive, and the hard drive is going to be your biggest advantage or your biggest upgrade. If you're using a standard hard drive that uses a spinning disk with a needle, that's upgradable. You can get an SSD and you can get a much better experience. But if you don't know how to check your specs, I'm going to show you how to do that as well. It's very easy and it doesn't take very long. Now, I will say that I am using a Windows computer. I don't have an Apple or a Mac, a MacBook, Mac Pro, Mac Mini. I don't have any of that, so unfortunately I won't be able to show you how to check for specs on a Mac, but I will show you how to do it on a Windows computer for those of you that are looking to build a Plex server on a Windows computer. All right, so the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how you can look up your system information on your computer. So this is going to be on a Windows computer. So we're going to go here to search, and we're going to type in system information. And we're going to click this. And then this is where you can see what you're running on your computer. So this is my processor. And then you have your motherboard. And then you have your memory. So this is a basic information that tells you what you have. Now, if you want to find out if you can upgrade any of your components, we're going to go to the internet and we're going to type in Crucial System Scanner. And then we're going to click here. And then we're going to click Start Your Free Scan. I'm going to hit Save. And then we're going to let this run. And it shouldn't take too long. But this is a good tool because it'll not only tell you what you have on your computer, but it'll also show you what you can upgrade. Okay, so it'll give you a little score. But then if you go down here, so this is telling me this is the max amount of RAM that I can put in my motherboard. And it tells me that I have 4 slots. And I currently have 2 8 gigs, which is correct, in my RAM slots. But if I want to max it out, I can put a max of 32 gigs per slot for a total of 128 gigs of RAM. Excuse me. All right. So, and then, here, if you want, you can buy their memory, or you can just go to Amazon and buy it. But usually also it will tell you if you can upgrade your hard drive. Now I have an NVMe SSD, so that's probably why it's not coming up. It's, there's nothing to upgrade it to, but if you had like a standard hard drive or something, that's not an SSD, it'll tell you you can upgrade your SSD, or you can upgrade to an SSD, and same thing, they'll tell you what size it is, and then they'll give you options to buy from their store. So that's how you figure out what you have, and then if you're not able to upgrade it, it'll tell you. So next we're going to go to Plex. So it looks like there's an update. So what I want to show you is the hardware accelerated transcoding versus just using your processor. So we're going to go to settings, and we're going to go to, let's see, I believe it is transcoder. No. Forgot what it was for a second. Here it is, transcoder. Okay, so use hardware accelerated video encoding. Use hardware acceleration when available. So as you can see, Plex Media Server will attempt to use hardware accelerated video codecs when encoding and decoding video. Hardware acceleration can make transcoding faster and allow more simultaneous video transcodes, but it can also reduce video quality and compatibility. And then here, if hardware acceleration is enabled, this controls whether it is used for encoding in addition to decoding. So I'm going to unselect these and I'm going to hit save. And when I come back, I'm going to pause this video and then I'm going to load up Plex on a bunch of different devices, as many as I can, and show you what it's going to do to my processor. So I'll be back in a minute. All right, so I have 8 different streams going right now, and Plex will tell me what it's playing on. So this is my NVIDIA Shield. It's direct playing. This is my Roku. It's direct playing. My iPad, my iPhone. So it looks like everything is direct playing. Okay, so let's see what it's doing to my processor. All right, so here's the bandwidth. This is going to be your internet. And remote, obviously 0 because there's nobody remote right now. Local, so this is local. And if you hover over it, it'll tell you. But what I really want to look at is my CPU usage. So you look at the green, this is the Plex Media server itself, and then red is the system. So with 8 streams going right now, my CPU is only at 20% steady. And that's because it's direct playing everything. So if you can direct play your media locally, you're not going to have an issue with your CPU. Once if you have to transcode it, then that's going to be the issue. And so I'm going to pause it again, and I'm going to go back and I'm going to change all my streams to transcode, and we're going to see what happens. Okay, so now I have, let's see. Okay, so my NVIDIA Shield is direct playing. I have my Roku is being transcoded from 1080p to 720p. Both of my iOS devices are being transcoded from 1080p to 720p. My Apple TV is being transcoded from 1080p to 720. My Vizio TV transcoded 1080 to 720p. And what is this? Oh, my laptop is being transcoded. So I have two streams left that are not being transcoded. Let's look at my CPU. 100%. You do not want that because your CPU will explode over time. So six transcodes. So I'm going to stop one of these. I'm going to stop playback here and see what happens to my CPU. And it's still 100. And it doesn't look like it stopped. So I'm going to stop it manually. Okay, so that one's gone. CPU usage is still at 100%. So I'm going to stop it on my iPad. CPU is still at 100%. Let me stop it on my iPhone. Fresh. Still 100%. Okay, so let's stop the Apple TV.
And it looks like it's still going. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop this. Okay, so I've stopped that one. And now it went down to 43%. So it looks like the max that I can get on transcoding is going to be direct playing 2 and transcoding 2. And if I do another one, then my CPU is going to go to 100%. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to stop all these on my phone. Okay. And it looks like one's still playing. So I'm going to pause and I'm going to come back. Okay. So it looks like nothing is playing now. So I'm going to go back to settings. And we're going to go to transcode. Nope. Went to the wrong place again. Nope. That was the right place. That's what happens when you start getting old. So we're going to click these again. And we're going to hit save. And I'm going to start playing some media here again. And I hit resume here. So we're going to go back here. Okay, so we have one that's already being transcoded. Actually, two that are hard. So you can see here it says this little HW, that means hardware transcoding. Let's look at my CPU, 20%. So I'm going to pause this and I'm going to come back and I'm going to add a few more streams. So now I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and this one's hardware transcoding, this one's hardware transcoding, this one, this one, this one, this one, this one, and this one. And again, hardware transcoding means it's using my GPU, my NVIDIA video card, instead of my processor. So let's look at what my CPU is at. So my CPU is at 60%. So before, when I had only 6 streams transcoding, it was at 100%. And it was only until I knocked it down to 2 transcodes and 2 regular direct plays did it drop down. So I've got 8 transcodings going on right now, and my CPU is fine. Now my RAM is a little high, so it's at 84%, but I still have 20%, about 15 to 20% left. So you can see what hardware transcoding does. If you have an NVIDIA video card and you can unlock it, this is going to be a lifesaver for you. I never have this many streams going at one time. And even when I do watch together, when I have a couple friends remote, it's only 3, maybe sometimes 4 streams. Usually it's just 2 because it's me local, and then it's like 2 streams, and I never have a problem. So that's what it can do. And then I'm going to get on my app. There is an app that I can use that shows me. So if I go home, Plex Dash. And this is only if you have a Plex Pass, unfortunately. But I can see everything that's being played on my server, whether it's local or remote. And I can click on here. Oops, I can click here, and I can stop playback. And I can even type a message. And you see it stopped. Stop playback. Stop. For some reason, I don't know why those aren't stopping, but there's also an app that you can use. As you've seen, you can stop playback, you can send messages, and you can just monitor your server. And then if I click here, I can see the same thing on screen as this.
Alright guys, well unfortunately my screen recorder decided to freeze up on me while I was recording, and I was not able to show you everything that I was doing on screen even though there was audio, so I'll just tell you. But as you could hear in the video, I was able to get 8 Plex streams that I was transcoding using hardware accelerated transcoding, and my processor was only at 60%. Now something I would like to see Plex improve, or some data that I would like to see from Plex, is some type of on-screen data that shows when my GPU reaches the limit and kicks over to my processor. I'm assuming that's what happened because my processor was only at 60%, so I don't know if my GPU reached the limit and then it kicked over to my processor, and then my processor was at 60% load, which isn't very bad, but I also don't know if it uses some type of hybrid, GPU plus processor. But I'm assuming that my GPU hit a certain limit, and then it kicked over to my processor, and that's why my processor was at 60%, even though it was using hardware accelerated transcoding with my GPU. So that's good to know that my GPU took off a lot of load from my processor, and my processor can handle other things doing my streams. So for hard drives, I'm using a combination of internal hard drives as well as external hard drives that have to be powered and are plugged into my computer via the USB. Now, this isn't really ideal but it works for me and it works for now. I don't have a problem with it. There's no problem transferring data, and there's certainly not a problem with people connecting remotely, but I am in the process of building a NAS. And for those of you that don't know what that is, that a NAS is a network attached storage. So what a NAS is it's a computer that is connected to your network, and then that computer has hard drives in it. And depending on the size of your computer or your computer case, you can put as much as you want or as little as you want. And so once that computer is networked with the NAS software, those hard drives are now also networked. So it basically is your own private, server. So it's a little bit different from a Plex server. They do have NAS servers that you can sideload Plex on it, and they have NASs that you can buy already built, or you can build your own with some free software, TrueNAS. So that's what I'm going to be using, or that's what I'm going to be doing in the near future. I have everything except for the hard drives. The hard drives are a little bit more expensive because I want to get two 14 terabyte hard drives, and they're not really that cheap, so I have to save up for it. But eventually I'm going to move all my media files that are currently on my external drives and my internal drives, and I have a separate computer that's just going to be for a NAS, and I'm going to move all those files to that computer, and then I'm just going to have everything either transferred or watched over the network via the NAS, and Plex is going to connect to my NAS and serve up my media throughout the house. Now I'm also utilizing my Plex media server with HomeKit and Homebridge, and I've made a video about this I talked about it briefly, but I love this feature. It takes a little bit more knowledge and a little bit more tinkering to get that up and running because Plex is not natively supported with HomeKit. You have to download a third-party software called Homebridge, and what Homebridge is, it's basically a third-party HomeKit that enables you to use devices that aren't normally supported with HomeKit, and you can do that. You can link those devices, whether it be lights, smart switches, or whatever. You can link them with HomeKit through Homebridge. So Homebridge allows you to add smart devices that aren't normally compatible with HomeKit. So that's what I'm doing with Plex. And like I said, it can get a little bit more complicated. Let me know in the comments if you guys want to see a video or a tutorial about that. I can work on that with my cousin, and we can try to get something up and running to show you guys how you can get Plex to work with your smart lights if you have those, because it's really awesome, and it really makes the experience more seamless, and it takes out a lot of headache of having to flip on switches all the time, and you sit down and you forgot to turn off the light, now you have to go back. So it cuts out all that stuff. Now let's talk about location. So you may be wondering, why does it matter where I place my Plex server or my computer that's hosting my Plex server? Well, this is important because computers can get very loud. Depending on the type of computer that you have, the type of case that you have, how many fans it has, a computer by itself can be loud, just with the power that it has. But when that CPU starts working harder and those fans ramp up, it can get really loud and it can get really distracting. So I like to keep my Plex media server and my computer outside of my theater. That way I don't have to worry about any type of ambient noise being distracting during the movie. Now you can place your computer pretty much anywhere because it's going to be networked and you're going to be accessing the files over the network. So you don't have to have your computer physically in your home theater room. Now unless you're using your PC as a HTPC, a home theater PC, and you have it directly hooked up to your TV or your projector, that's a different story. But it's not necessary because all the files are going to be accessed over the network, and you can literally place it anywhere. You can place it in the closet, you can place it in a spare bedroom, you can even put it in the attic. I don't recommend you do that unless you have, an AC cooled attic. But just to show you, you can put it anywhere. It really doesn't matter because the files are going to be transferring over the network, and you don't have to have it literally next to you or in your home theater room. You can even put it in your rack. So I like to keep mine outside of the theater so that I don't have that ambient noise. Now as far as the specs, if you want to build a Plex media server, you have two choices. You can, well, actually you have more than two choices. You can use an existing computer that you already have. Maybe you have one lying around somewhere that you're not even using. You can go buy a new computer, or you could build your own computer. So what I've done is I've built two computers. My first computer was the first computer that I ever built, and I built it specifically for a Plex server, and I ended up moving that to my NVIDIA Shield. I'm not using my NVIDIA Shield anymore. Earlier this year, I actually built a new computer, a better computer, and this one was built specifically for Plex. That's going to be probably your best bet, and it's kind of a two-edged sword, because in some cases, depending on the specs of the computer, you might come out better and spending less money than going to a box store and buying a computer that's already built and put together. And some cases, you may spend more. You may spend a lot more depending on how beefy you want to build your computer. So the choices are pretty much endless there. All right, YouTube. I hope you found this video helpful. Hopefully I was able to give you some inspiration on your Plex media server if this is your first time building one. I hope I gave you some good ideas. Let me know in the comments what you guys are using, what components, whether you're using a NAS, if you're just using a regular computer. Let me know the specs that you're using on your Plex media server, and if you guys have any ideas that can help me. All right, till the next time, see you in the next video.